What's happening, guys? It's Mike at Mike's Total Dragon Channel, and as I teased yesterday, today I'm going to reveal to you what is the greatest comic book that has ever been made, in my humble opinion. That's all I can give. It's just my opinion. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and do the reveal right now. So, the greatest comic book that has ever been made. This is actually not it. This is a reprint of it, but the greatest comic book that has ever been made is Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. Now, the reason I say that, this, before I go any further, I'll tell you what the deal is right here. This is a reprint format for Spider-Man, kind of like how Classic X-Men reprinted all the old X-Men issues. They did this with Spider-Man. There's been a bunch of books that reprinted old Spider-Man stuff. This was one that came out, judging by the $1.25 price tag, looks like in the early 90s sometime. And I picked it up somewhere. I don't even remember where I got it from at this point. But because Amazing Fantasy 15 is such a rare book and has such a high price tag, they reprinted them to make them more accessible to people. This was from this. They were doing these reprints in an era in which trade paperbacks were not as prevalent as they are today. Back then in the 80s and 90s, if you saw a trade paperback, it was something that was really rare. You wouldn't see them like you see today. You know, if you saw one, it was maybe 4 or 5 issues put together, and it had to have been something that was really, 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 stand out, something that really stood out. They weren't. That was probably one of the biggest changes about comic books over the last 20-something years, is the prevalence of how many trade paperbacks come out and how frequently. But anyway, that's a different tangent. So, Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Peter Parker, first appearance of Spider-Man. This is what I consider to be the greatest comic book ever made. If you haven't ever read it, we'll go along, talk a little bit about it. The book opens up. This first page right here, we've got the typical Stan Lee introduction bubble. Just from this first page, with this great Steve Ditko art, we see Peter Parker. He's a local outcast, but however, we got this really cool Ditko shadow that tells us there's more to him than that. And over the course of these next couple pages, we see that Peter Parker, he's basically the local nerd. He lives with his aunt and uncle. His parents are no longer with him. We see this picture here. He's incredibly smart. He does very well at school. However, girls kind of blow him off. The bully picks on him. Then we see the classic page right here. The moment that changes his whole entire life and changes comic books as a whole. He gets bit by the radioactive spider. His powers are starting to manifest themselves. He's able to stick to walls. He can climb up walls. He's got great agility. He's got great strength. Crushes his pipe. He wants to test himself. This fella right here, Crusher Hogan, could win a crisp $100. So he basically masks up, takes out this wrestler here. We got this kind of shifty guy right here. He says, hey, this masked character might be just what I'm looking for. Peter makes a little bit of money. Says, hey, I can kind of get used to this. I like the way this feels. And right here we see the road that Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is on. So they laughed at me for being a bookworm. Well, only I could have created something like this. I can use this spider web to pull myself anywhere. Okay, world. Better hang on to your hats. Here comes Spider-Man. He really is feeling himself right here. He's got a lot of confidence in himself for the first time ever. Spider-Man's on television, kind of doing like a little, look at me, look what I can do. Everyone wants a piece of him. And then we see this pivotal moment right here. Stop, thief, stop him. If he makes it to the elevator, he'll get away. He gets away. Hey, what's with you? All you had to do was trip him or hold him for a minute. Like I said, Spider-Man's feeling himself. His confidence has gotten too high. He's gotten cocky. Save it, pal. That's your job. I'm through being pushed around. Spider-Man right here. Aunt May, Uncle Ben, buy him a little microscope that he'd been wanted. And we see this bubble right here, this thought bubble that Peter Parker had. They're the only ones who've ever been kind to me. I'll see to it that they're always happy. But the rest of the world can go hang for all I care. Peter's gotten his powers and he's got a taste of the good life. And it feels good to him for the first time in his life. He's someone that's on the top looking down. Spider-Man becomes talk of the nation. Then all of a sudden it happens right here. A police car in front of our house. What could be wrong? Bad news, son. Your uncle's been shot, murdered. It was a burglar. Your uncle's surprised, but don't worry, we've got him trapped. Peter says, I know that area. That guy can hold out in there forever against those police officers. But he won't hold out against Spider-Man. Spider-Man web swings across town using his powers. He gets inside the building, hunts down the burglar, apprehends him, and then in this moment right here, that face, oh no, it can't be. It's the guy who ran past me. The one I didn't stop when I had the chance. Spider-Man webs him up. And then right here, my fault. It's all my fault. If I had stopped him, he wouldn't have killed Uncle Ben. And then we see it end right here. And so a legend is born. And we have the infamous phrase right here. Great power. There must also come great responsibility. So that is it. I want to say it is 9-10 pages. And that is what I think is the greatest comic book of all time. Amazing Fantasy 15. The reason I say that is it is told in such, I mean, it's in that story, in that issue of Amazing Fantasy 15, that's not even the whole story. That's just the first part of the book, of the stories that are included in that book. And like I said, it's 9 or 10 pages. And in those 9 or 10 pages, what Stan Lee and Steve Ditko managed to accomplish is just unprecedented. They take a character who was a big nobody, a big nerd, and they give him powers. Now, normally what has been done in comic books up to that point is when somebody gets powers, automatically they use them to start fighting crime. Like, it's not even a consideration. Like, I got this power, I got super speed. I got a magic ring. I'm using it to fight crime. What Stan Lee and Steve Ditko did was they said, what if we had a guy, what would a real person do? A real person, especially one who come from hardship, like Peter is, he would use those powers to try and make money. And and especially considering Peter is not the big man on campus. He's the nerd at school. Never had anything easy. Uncle Ben, Aunt May, living hand to mouth. It makes total sense that Peter would use those powers for his own selfish reasons. And what happens? He does use those powers for his own selfish reasons, but it comes back and it bites him in the ass. And the end of it is very much like, almost, I call it, it's like a Twilight Zone style twist. You know, you've got the story and it's going along and it's going along, and then at the very end, you have the last page reveal where the burglar is someone that Peter could have stopped himself. And that is like a real big Twilight Zone style twist, you know, M. Night Shyamalan style twist. And because Peter was stuck on himself and was basically living the good life for the first time, and in his huge egotistical moment, it cost him the person who had been basically just like a father to him for his whole life, you know. And that right there, treating Spider-Man that way and making that character, making that be his origin, had not been seen up to that point in comic books. And it was such a groundbreaking move that it established Marvel as the company who has characters who have human flaws. They're characters that, like Stan said, it's the world outside your window. People who were not 100%, you know, people of virtue like you would see in DC. With Fantastic Four and Amazing Spider-Man, you had people who made the wrong choices, who fought amongst each other, who sometimes did the wrong things for the wrong reasons, you know. And like I said, the impact of what Amazing Fantasy 15 did, it turned everything on its head. And the thing that always impresses me the most about that story is, like I've said before, it's only like 8 or 9 pages, you know, and Stan and Steve Ditko were able to pack that much punch into that story and to make that's why Spider-Man was their flagship character. You know, that is why he became a very relatable person to the fandom at large, as a character who sometimes things did not work out for him. Sometimes he made the wrong choice, but he always, Spider-Man, you know, because of his situation with Uncle Ben being gone and him being the sole supporter of Aunt May, it was not a perfect life for him. And because it was not a perfect life for him, things sometimes really went awry for him. You know, there was a lot of these early issues where Spider-Man did not have the perfect ending, where things did not go the way for him that you would think they would for a you know, a modern superhero character, you know. But that is why I say that Fantasy 15, as reprinted right here, is the perfect character. And I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, obviously Stan Lee crafted a really great story, but Steve Ditko, he gets so much right about Spider-Man. You know, he portrays, the way he draws Peter as someone who's kind of thin, kind of frail looking. He does not look like your typical superhero. he looks, you know, for lack of a better term, he moves weird. He looks weird. You know, yeah, that arm right there is super long. But, you know, he does not move like you would see at the time Superman or Green Lantern or Flash or whatever, just being big, typical superheroic guys. Steve draws him, you know, kind of quirky, kind of weird. And that part of his look, that as part of his look right there really encapsulates the feel that make people act like this when they see him. You know, how is he able to do all these things? But there's not only that, but then there's also scenes like this. The panic on Peter's face when he finds out that Uncle Ben has been shot. The desperation that he shows right here to get into costume and to hunt down the burglar that shot him. And then, of course, right here, the way he shows Peter with this huge look of regret on his face. The fact that it could have been stopped if he had just done anything whatsoever to help out. You know, all these things are they just hit home. Steve Ditko nails it. He nails the moment in every panel, you know. So as much as it's Stan Lee's story and the twist ending that he scripted, it's Steve Ditko too, man. Him putting in this work and conveying feelings and emotions through his really weird and quirky style. So like I said, Amazing Fantasy 15, world's greatest comic book ever, right here. Impact, legacy, the way it changed everything, the brevity in which the story is told, but still manages to, really hit home. You're not going to find anything better than that, man. You might find something that's newer and more modern, but for what they did here in the year and with the pages they had available, you're not going to be able to beat that. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel, and I would be hard pressed to have someone change my mind about Amazing Fantasy 15 being the greatest comic book that's ever made. So until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Have a good day. Bye-bye.